Okay, I'm going to make two videos over the next 20 minutes or so, including this one, and I would hope that they demonstrate that I'm an objective person when it comes to making videos, just in case anyone thinks that I'm not. Although generally I get positive feedback from my subscribers, so I would thank them for that. But for casual people who just stroll by and maybe see one of my videos and jump to conclusions about myself based on one video, I would hope that the angle that I'm taking with the two videos to come would show that I am objective, although I have views on matters. So the first video, this one, is about the count in Peterborough. Um, I'm not sure if Peterborough is one seat or two seats, but anyway, it was one of the Peterborough seats in this general election. And it caught my attention because there's a few of these videos going around, and they're all against the incumbent MP, who is a Conservative, Stuart Jackson. Now, before I express my views on what happened in those videos, I want to make it clear that I don't live in Peterborough and that I don't know much about him as an MP. So this video is not intended to defend his record as an MP or his policies. I want to make that very clear. I don't support the Conservative Party, and I I don't know anything about Mr. Jackson either way. For all I know, he might be deeply unpleasant, or he might be a good MP. I just don't know. But clearly, he's been returned. So clearly, a significant portion of Peterborough constituents believe he's a good enough MP to be returned to Parliament. So the context here is that there's a few videos emerging of his speech. It's tradition in the UK that when a candidate wins or loses, he or she will make a little speech. And usually it's thanking the constituents, thanking the returning officers, thanking the police. So a lot of it's customary. This one stood out a little bit because it was quite um, a hostile situation. Basically, there was a group of people who I presume were Labour Party activists, and let's just say they were being less than polite. Um, and they basically, as he was making his speech, they were jeering and booing and heckling him throughout the whole thing. Now, he wasn't much more diplomatic himself. He called them basically a bunch of losers, and the Labour Party should learn some humility. The heckling really started when he said he'd ran a positive campaign. I guess the insinuation there was that he hadn't. Now, like I say, I'm not in Peterborough, so I don't know whether his campaign was positive or not. It may well be that he ran a negative campaign and he was being dishonest there. I don't know. But what I want to say to those Labour activists is if you're putting a video on YouTube trying to get sympathy for your side of the argument, you have to be aware of how that comes across. This man, whatever you think of him, has been democratically elected by the people of Peterborough. So it doesn't matter what his policy were, it doesn't matter what sort of campaign he ran. In the end of the day, he got democratically elected. So by jeering him, you're actually jeering democracy. You're jeering the democratic process. Um, and that is very distasteful. Um, I'm not, I have no interest here in defending Stuart Jackson as an MP or as a person. I don't know the man. I don't know what sort of MP he is. I don't like his party. Okay? But those Labour activists need to be aware that as activists, they are also engaged in a political process and they're giving Labour a very negative image. They're giving Labour an image of a very childish party of sore losers, quite frankly. So, and this is something that I've noticed about the Labour Party. I've seen it myself at counts. I've been in counts locally, and the Labour Party does tend to have activists who are very boisterous, very loud, and very churlish. And it is something that you notice more with the Labour Party than with any other party. You don't generally see this with Liberal Democrats or with Conservatives or with UKIP voters. This seems to be something that is disproportionate to the Labour Party, and they need to be aware that if they're trying to reach out to more people, if they really want to win the next general election, they're going to have to be aware of their image. Now, I'm saying this not to defend the Conservative Party. I don't like the Tories, okay? And it's unlikely that I would ever vote for them. And the next video that I make will hopefully show that. But, and in fact, the next video I'm going to make will be a critique of Conservative supporters. But this video is a critique of the behaviour of Labour activists. Now, whatever has been going on in Peterborough, I heard one guy, the guy that uploaded one video, shout out, "You're a homophobe" or something like this. If Mr. Jackson has made homophobic remarks, then you can write to him as an MP and press him on those issues. Get him to explain those issues. People have a right to complain about MPs. That's not the issue here. It's not an attack on free speech. Rather, it is criticising the fact that Labour seem to think that they can win arguments by shouting someone down. And that's not the way it goes. I mean, I've seen a few of these videos, and he started off his speech being quite diplomatic and just thanking constituents, thanking the officers and so on. He only responded in that way, it seemed to me, when he was responding to the constant heckles. Now, some people are saying he's an MP, he should rise above it. Maybe he should. But my point would be that the people who were there are not normal voters. They're not just members of the Peterborough constituency. They're active Labour Party members. So, in my opinion, they're bringing the Labour Party into disrepute with that sort of behaviour. And the local Labour Party should take some responsibility and say, look, we accept democracy. We accept the fact he won his seat fair and square. You can say it was a negative campaign, and if that is the case, that is unfortunate. He says it was positive. I don't know. I wasn't there. Um, you know, I I know that sometimes local campaigning can get personal and nasty, so I'm not going to say that he's entirely innocent himself. And maybe he should have risen above it. Maybe he should have been a little bit more statesmanlike or parliamentarian, let's say. But Labour Party activists have to realise that it doesn't go down well amongst the wider public if you're booing a democratically elected official who's just been democratically elected. Um, and looking at the comments on those videos, some of them were 50-50, but most of them were criticising the Labour activists. Now, I don't know Stuart Jackson. He might be a very unpleasant individual for all I know. But you would be much better making a video and saying, like, exposing his bigotry or whatever it is, and saying, look, this is his views. This is a person we have representing us, and it's a disgrace. However, we accept the fact that he's democratically elected. Um, I mean, put it this way, I do not like the results of this year's general election. I hate the idea that we have 5 years of Toryism, and I hate the fact that in Scotland there is a nationalist party whose ultimate goal is to break up this country. But you know what? I accept that as democracy. Yes, the Murdoch press has a negative influence, but in the end of the day, 11.2 million people believe the Conservative Party is the right choice for them. So those of us who don't like the Tories need to just accept that fact. And we will not win the argument by jeering democratically elected representatives of the Conservative Party. I'd be saying the same thing, by the way, if it was Conservative activists booing a Labour candidate who just got down. Um, on a more optimistic note, in many other seats, it was a lot more diplomatic and a lot more amicable. Um, and I'm not naive with this. I understand that in politics, opinions can get heated and there's a lot at stake. So, temperatures sometimes do rise. But activists, especially, need to be aware that if they're going out and campaigning for the Labour Party, people are going to look at this video and say, well, wait a second, you're acting like a bunch of yobs. Why should we support your party? It doesn't matter how right or wrong your arguments are. If you behave in a certain way, that has repercussions. So, that's my response to that video. But it is also a general response to political activism in general. People can be fairly stupid sometimes in terms of they don't seem to realize how their behavior resonates to the wider public. I get the fact that you maybe hate Stuart Jackson as an MP, and I don't know him, so I'm not going to say, I don't know what his policies are, but you might come back on this video and say, oh, well, he's a homophobe, he's sexist, he's whatever. And I would say, well, if that is the case, then yeah, he should be challenged. but you don't challenge him by acting like a mob and jeering him down. That isn't how it's done. Okay, you get involved in one-on-one debate with him, but you don't jeer a man when he's just been elected. It's not the way to go about things. And I would sort of compare boxing and politics. I'm a boxing fan. It's the same principle. I don't like the fact that when a boxer wins a match and the fans don't like it, they boo him. Take Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, and okay, I accept that this is completely off topic, but I'm just making an analogy. I was a Manny Pacquiao fan. I want Pacquiao to win. I had a little bit of an argument with one of my Filipino friends because she was sort of justifying all the boos against Floyd Mayweather, and I said, look, I don't particularly like Mayweather either, and I want Pac-Man to win, but he lost. Mayweather won, and we have to accept that. And that sort of booing is, I'd make this as a general argument. Booing is something that no responsible adult should do. It's just a very childish way to express your disagreement with someone because it's just you're not making any point with that. All you're doing is expressing vocally that you dislike someone, but you aren't really winning any arguments by that sort of behavior. And it goes for boxing fans as well. Okay, I know it's a different field, politics, boxing, but I'm interested in both, so that's why I'm making an analogy. Um, okay, so if you're a Labour activist in Peterborough, Peterborough is not the only place that has um, tense local issues, but not every other seat behaves in this way. You don't get the same response everywhere. Although I do find it as characteristic of Labour activists that they do tend to behave in this way. Not all of them, okay, I'm not going to generalise, but it does tend to be a trend with Labour Party activists, and they need to be aware of how that comes across.